Hello, everyone, and welcome to our April 21st webinar, Introduction to Mindfulness and Meditation. If this is your first time on one of our webinars, bid you a very warm welcome. And just a few things that you should know is that everyone is automatically on mute while you're on the webinar. And of course, this is just to make it easier for everyone. And however, you're more than welcome to use the chat function, which is on the, you see that kind of on the left to center side of your screen. If you're calling on the phone, I would ask that you please mute yourself. And other than that, just welcome to our webinar, and I'm going to hand it off to our wonderful speaker for today, Ekta Harangari.
Thank you, Perlin. So nice of you to do the introduction for me. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I see one of my friends is on this call, so I'm super excited for that. I hope that you and your families are all safe during this time and trying to keep physical distancing as good as possible. So thank you for all that you've been doing to keep all of us safe. So let's get started. I am going to do my best to keep the webinar short. You might see me reading some stuff. It's only to keep myself on track because as you know, this is such a vast topic, and being a meditation and mindfulness nerd, I tend to go on quite a bit. So to keep myself on track, I've made some notes and also so that I don't miss anything important. Okay, so about me, I'm a social worker, a yoga teacher, mindfulness coach, and writer. So I teach trauma-informed yoga, gentle yoga, and vinyasa. I've been a social worker since 2005, and I've worked with many diverse organizations across India, the US, and Canada. What can I say? That I'm transitioning my career from being a clinical social worker to being a mindfulness coach. It is for general public, but my heart lies with working with people in the nonprofit sector, so direct services. And my first project is coming up with a fairly big nonprofit where we're trying to include the values of mindfulness in their staff wellness plan. But all of these things don't happen in a vacuum. So something about me personally. I became a caregiver to my mother when I was 13 years old. She was 42 or 43, and she was diagnosed with young onset Alzheimer's. There's a rare form of genetic dementia in my family, so I currently live at risk to develop this condition in the next 3 to 5 years. Because of my experiences as a young carer and a lot of other traumatic experiences in childhood, I lived with depression and anxiety for several years. I'm going to say most of my life. And I also have lived experience of chronic illness. So that's chronic pain. And I consider mental health to be a chronic illness as well. And to add to the trauma of being an immigrant twice over, I moved from India to the US first and then to Canada. Having said all these things, I can say that at the age of 38, almost 39, just a few weeks short, that I am the happiest that I've ever been in my life. I wake up with so much hope. I wake up with a feeling of abundance and gratitude every single day. And I attribute this transformation to my mindfulness practice. So just whatever you hear from me today, it's coming from my education, my practice, and things that I have researched. And I'm currently writing a book on mindfulness and meditation from a multi-faith perspective. Yeah, moving forward. So just to give you an outline about what we're going to cover today. Myths about mindfulness, brief introduction to what mindfulness actually is, the impact of trauma, benefits of mindfulness on campus, because I was invited by the CIC so I thought I would include a bit on that, and tips for daily practice, and Metta Meditation. So I want to keep this as interactive as possible. I want to give you a dose of some of the things that I like to do or I include in my sessions when I go out and talk to people. So I will be breezing through a lot of the stuff that we all know about. So for example, impact of trauma. We all know trauma bad, right? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into the physiology of it. Okay, so I want to get started with a grounding exercise. I invite you all to sit in a comfortable position. Relax your spine, your shoulders. Do any little movement or any adjustment that you need to get as comfortable as possible. Soften your face, your forehead, your jaw, and tongue. Notice all points of contact with the earth, maybe your chair, maybe if you're lying down your bed even. If your legs are crossed, just for a few minutes, uncross them. Take a big breath in through your nose. Open your mouth and let something go. Do that again. Inhale through your nose. Open your mouth and sigh it out. Bring awareness to your natural breath now. Breathe in and out through your nose. Notice where you feel your breath in your body. Maybe the rise and fall of your chest. I wanted to lead you through some circular breathing. So inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your nose for 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause for 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your nose for 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause for 1, 2, 3, 4. Do that one more time. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Let go of the counting and just be with your breath, your inhalations and exhalations. I'm not sure why it's cutting out. Just stay with your breath. It all happens. Soft breath. Set an intention for this hour, how you want to show up. And what will allow you to get the most out of this session. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes if you have them closed. My intention is to stay on track and to make sure that your questions are answered. And I know there are some technical difficulties. I hope that it will stay stable for the rest of the presentation. Okay, so let's get started. Let's talk about myths about mindfulness. So mindfulness is meditation. Meditation is a type of mindfulness, but not all types of mindfulness are meditation. So we will touch on all of these a little bit in as we go on. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them right now. Meditation is about taking out time to rest and relax. Perhaps one of the aims could be that, but mindfulness is about a lot more than just being restful and relaxed. And there can be a little bit of discomfort for some practitioners in the initial stages, or maybe even later. Sometimes even from time to time after all these years, I have discomfort as well. But it's not nothing to be worried about. It can happen. So, but if we go in expecting to be blissful or to be completely restful and relaxed, that we might feel jolted when something comes up for us. Mindfulness is having no thoughts. Actually, that's a myth, big myth. So I found this really great reference in Sufism, in Islam. There's a concept called muraqaba, where you spend time in silence to check in with yourself. It is said that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has said, so there's a verse in the Quran that says, "Verily at times there is a fog over my heart, so I seek the forgiveness of Allah 100 times in a day." So it basically talks about how he used to spend all his time in meditative, contemplative meditation to be unified with Allah. But then which was his normal state of being, and then his attention would still get wavered. And then, if that could happen to Prophet Muhammad, I am just, a beginner, a small speck in this whole mindfulness cog, right? So it happens to everybody. So it's not about not having thoughts. It's about allowing those thoughts to pass through us. Like I said, mindfulness is not bliss. Mindfulness can be blissful, but expecting any magical experience can mean that we will be disappointed or disheartened when that doesn't happen. And many times things are working, but because we are expecting it to be something magical, we stop doing it because that's not what it was. So let go of all those expectations. Then I read this somewhere, and I've asked, people have said this to me because of the changes I have made to my career, which is that mindfulness wears down your grit to achieve. This is not true. A daily mindfulness practice may definitely impact the way we think. It makes us realign ourselves with the things that are most important to us. So we may move from chasing goals and money and promotions to really aligning ourselves with things that really, really matter to us, like values. So moving from a goal-based to a more value-based life. And the last one is mindfulness takes years to master. So like we just did an exercise right now, you can do little things. We can do little things in every moment to be mindful, and that starts making a difference. You can feel the difference in the moment, in the short term, and over the long term as well. So to become like the Dalai Lama or someone like that, it may take me 20 years, but to benefit from mindfulness, not at all. Every time you do it, you would benefit from it. I know that there may be many more myths. If you have any questions, Linda is saying, yes, there will be a recording of this presentation available, Linda. So let's talk about what mindfulness actually is. So we talked about what mindfulness is not. So what is mindfulness exactly? So it is the process of bringing deliberate attention to the present moment and whatever is happening in it. So we are observing whatever is happening and accepting whatever is happening. And how do we do it? So the actions are observing and accepting, and the values are without judgment and with compassion. So for example, I'm observing that I am going a little bit fast. I'm observing and I'm accepting that, but without judgment, without thinking, oh my God, I'm the worst presenter on earth, and with compassion. You can slow down. It's okay. You're doing well. You still have so much of the presentation to go. Slow down. So I bring awareness to my feet and ground them so that I also slow down as I'm speaking. I connect with my breath. And as you can notice, I did actually slow down. So this is something that happened to me right now in the moment, and this is how I used it. So that's what mindfulness is, being very attentive, bringing deliberate attention to what is rather than what we wish it would be or what we wish it wouldn't be. The source of all suffering, according to the practice that I follow, is that we want things to happen a certain way or we want things to not happen a certain way. So cravings and aversions. So we are suspending those as much as possible and try to be in the moment as much as possible. So what is the origin of mindfulness practices? So what the secular mindfulness as we practice in the West, through our mindfulness-based stress reduction programs, mindfulness self-compassion programs, mindfulness-based cognitive behavior therapy, or even DBT. So a lot of these are what we call secular practices, secular way of practicing mindfulness. But a lot of these techniques come from Hinduism and Buddhism, which are ancient religions. So while a lot of people think that mindfulness comes from Hinduism and Buddhism, in my research and in my personal interactions with people, I've realized that all faiths have a component of mindfulness and meditation. So, for example, my mother was a Jain. Not many people know that a religion like this exists. It is as old as Hinduism, and it predates Buddhism. And it doesn't revolve around God, but around mindful living and meditation. That's the center. It's based on value-based living and meditation and unifying with the universe and things like that. So they focus on meditation a lot. In Islam, there is a concept of fana. Following stages of meditation and devotion, a person can become the perfect human being, dissolving their notions of self. There are different types of intentions or types of fana, as I understand it. I'm still exploring this topic. And Judaism, I'm learning, is an entire religion, or the Torah is a way of mindful living. And a book that I'm reading, I really highly recommend it. It's called Mindful Jewish Living by Jonathan P. Slater. It explains the Jewish way of living so beautifully. And one thing in that book that he said, I will never look at my breath again in the same way. I do believe that breath is the intelligence of our body. But in this book, he says that each breath I take is a reminder or a symbol of the first breath of creation. So whether we believe in evolution or not, we all know that there was a first breath, the first organism took, and every breath I take is a reminder of that or a symbol of that divine design. It just blew my mind. So like I said, a lot of religions have a concept of that. And the one thing we want to be aware of is colonization and erasure of cultural practices. So in the fight to make things accessible to all, we are not giving credit to cultures from which these practices come. I don't want to get into the details of them, but it's something to keep in mind. Who is teaching us these techniques? Where do these techniques come from? And an example of that is, people doing smudging, burning sage, using Palo Santo to, cleanse their house of whatever vibes. These come from indigenous practices, but many people don't know that, and we all know what the status of indigenous people is today all around the world. So that's one way we can use it. It's not that we can't use these techniques, but it's about being respectful and also, kind of doing what we can to support those communities from which these practices come. And for example, Palo Santo, there is the forest from which it comes is now like it's getting extinct. So we also have to be conscious of how we are using certain resources that come from different cultures, right? Okay, moving on. So what are the different types of mindfulness? So there's formal mindfulness, which is like your meditation, yoga, tai chi, mindfulness-based stress reduction groups, mindful self-compassion groups. And then there's informal techniques that you can do, like unitasking. So there was a video here. We'll send it to you by email if you're interested, or you can go on YouTube and look at it. It's called Tabless Thursday, and you have to look at it. It's hilarious, and you will find it hilarious because it probably applies to each one of us. So unitasking essentially means doing one thing at a time and really doing only that. So if you're chopping vegetables, only chop vegetables. If you're doing research on a project, do only that and not do 5 other things in the process. It's a different thing to play music to help you concentrate, but spending time doing one thing at a time is very beneficial, and that's a way of practicing mindfulness without meditating. So we all have blocks, like we have different kinds of blocks. Some people have blocks to meditation, some people have blocks to journaling, and I'm part of a group right now, and somebody just told me, you are wearing me down. They're going to start journaling because I was telling them all about my journaling techniques. You're going to get a chance to experience that towards the end of this. So daily living tasks. So when you shower, just allowing yourself to be in the moment. Many of us are guilty of literally starting to build our task list in our head as we are in the shower, as we are brushing our teeth. But the idea is to really be in the moment and focus on the action. Focus on the action and not on other things. So really be present with yourself. Another way to do it is when you're brushing your teeth or when you're standing in the shower, plant your feet down fully. Notice all 4 corners of your feet pressing down or gently being supported by the earth. It's another way of feeling grounded in the moment. Mindful walks, biking, all of them are ways of practicing mindfulness informally. So if you thought that you cannot be mindful, after this, my hope is you were like, oh, I'm mindful all the time. I spend a lot of time doing mindfulness. So there's formal types, informal types, group-based, individual, and there's different ways of practicing it. There's probably 2,000 ways in which we can each day practice mindfulness. Okay. Body and breath. So traditionally, a body and breath were used as a way. So these techniques come from, thousands of years old. There was no headspace or insights timer. There were no apps, cell phones. So people had to rely on what they had. And usually it would be their body and breath as a way of starting. So they would start by noticing what is happening in their body. So that's what Muraqaba, what I talked about in Islam, that's a concept. Vipassana, the meditation that I do, I practice, that is also a part of that. And so what you know as your modern body scan, it comes from these techniques, which is to bring awareness to the body, the sensations in our body. So if I asked you, where in your body, like think of a happy moment and step into that moment right now. And where in your body do you feel the sensations? So we all know that, for me, I start smiling, my shoulders start relaxing, and I know exactly where in my body I might feel anxiety or anger. It's all here in my belly. So right now I have some butterflies, but I just ground my feet and I smile and be like, oh, butterflies, they're tickling. So we learn to not interpret the sensation. So mindfulness is about observing but not interpreting. When I first started teaching yoga, I was like, I'm so nervous. I have butterflies in my stomach. And my yoga teacher looked at me and said, so what happens when you fell in love and, you were going on a date with with your partner? And I was like, yeah, I felt the same. So she's like, why are you giving it a name? It could just mean you want to do your best. It could just mean you want this to work out. So stop interpreting it. So mindfulness is not hard. It is our habit of judging that makes everything so hard, right? So that's what I hope that you will take away from this session, that we can be mindful in every moment if we just stop judging ourselves. And using senses. So what can I see? What can I hear? What can I touch? So like grounding is a way where you put your feet down, or whatever you're touching, you feel all corners of your hands and feet being supported by your chair or the earth. That's a way of using your senses, your touch. And breath as a regulator. So pranayam, I'm not sure if you've heard, but in yoga, we have a lot of yogic breathing, a lot of techniques, so they use breath as a regulator, or sometimes just observing the natural breath. The grounding exercise that we did had a bit of both. When you observe your natural respiration, we we don't judge. So if it's short, it's short. If it's deep, it's deep. And when you regulate, you're doing it with an intention. So my intention was to relax you and make you present. But there's ways in pranayam, we have different techniques. We do them for digestion, we do them to clear sinuses, but in every way they have psychological benefits as well. So what are the different types of meditation? So we learned the different types of mindfulness, like literally any activity we do in daily life can be an act of mindfulness. If you listen to a song, just listen to that song and don't do anything else. Very rarely do we do that, right? So we learned what the informal types of mindfulness are. And we know that yoga and Tai Chi are forms of mindfulness because it's combining breath with movement. So different types of meditation styles are guided, unguided, visualizations, contemplation. Contemplation is usually used in religious or faith-based practices a lot. Affirmation, so like mantras, they don't have to be like Hindu mantras. Some people say, I'm beautiful, I'm bountiful, beautiful, I'm bountiful, I'm strong. So those would be all affirmations, and people can do them based on breath. We just talked about pranayam. Breathwork is a new technique come up in the last few decades, and people use it for relaxation. You breathe for 26 minutes lying on the floor with your mouth open. They teach you how to do it, and then for 35 minutes you're lying in shavasana or in corpse pose, which is do nothing and just let your body take over. So some of these newer techniques are also coming from that. Prayers are a form of meditation as well, because we bring attention. So in Christianity, there is a way of praying which is called ACTS. That's adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. So adoration so first of all, prayer requires making time to be with God. Adoration is talking about how wonderful God is. Confession is talking about what is going on with me personally right now. Thanksgiving is expressing gratitude, and supplication is actually making requests for other people. So it's a type of meditation in itself. All of these things I'm learning, discovering, and really find it so meaningful that there's so many different ways to practice mindfulness without just sitting still for hours together. There is benefit to that. I do it a lot, but I also do many of these other techniques. And mixed would mean you use a combination of these techniques and create your own version. So mindfulness, according to me, is a practice that is for you, by you, curated by you, that you personalize in a way that fits for you. And you find what works for you each day and you just do it. So while it helps to go to formal courses, my passion is to help people on their journeys to take on mindfulness as something very personal to them, like a fashion sense. So just wanted to talk about this time. We are all in this crazy time all over the world, and so many people are talking about, I need to clean my house, I need to start 5 projects, I need to do this, I need to do that, and I'm one of those too. And then I read somewhere that this is not a vacation. Thinking that time is abundant is a way of saying that this is our choice. This is not our choice, and we're all experiencing a sort of collective trauma. So it's important to be gentle and aware of what is going on. Whatever is happening with us, with me, I can only do the best that I can without beating myself up about it, right? So the impact of this stress. So say you're not able to concentrate, that's what's happening in the moment, but the judgment, I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, I need to do more. That's what causes the stress. And prolonged stress can have physical, psychological, spiritual impact on us. We start believing all those lies that we tell ourselves, those analysis, the stories that we create, and they can have a long-term impact. So stress and trauma can cause a person to develop heart disease. They have a higher risk for substance use. I know, I used to do it. Difficulty in emotional expression. I also had issues in expressing my anger and disappointment. But my hurt and disappointment. So my default emotion was always anger, because it was easier to be angry than to be really, really sad. Poor relationships, lower self-esteem, difficulty in concentrating, poor outlook about the future. Lots of mental health issues can also be caused or are correlated with a long-term stress and trauma, right? So we all know that this happens, and I'm not going to spend more time on this slide, but I just wanted to say that this is what happens, and this is not the only way it impacts a person. There are so many other things that you may be aware of that is not on the slide. Yes, so stress and trauma, and they impact people very uniquely. So there's generic ways in which they impact people, but for me there were certain things I just couldn't eat, or certain things I just couldn't do, like attend weddings, be part of celebrations, and it was really impacting the way my mood would be around Christmas, Diwali, any festival, per se. So that's just an example. So what is the role for mindfulness? So we know that stress and trauma exists. So how can mindfulness help? So mindfulness is not a cure, but mindfulness can be used as a complement to treatment, and as a way of coping, and as a way of living. The best thing about mindfulness is that, like I said, it can be personalized for the person, if they are willing to practice it every day, right? So like we said, mindfulness is a way of paying attention to what is happening. So it increases our awareness for different states of being. So sometimes we may just be avoiding feeling certain things and choosing to cope in a different way, many times using substances, or just not thinking about it, just not going there. But this allows us to go into those difficult moments and actually bring compassion, which allows for acceptance and remediation of the experience. So like I said before, that I'm nervous about presenting here, and it keeps coming. Every couple of slides I feel I'm speaking faster, so I just say it's okay, it happens, you're doing well, and I allow myself to just calm down. Experience of relief, that when I comfort myself, I know that there is a break from feeling this kind of anxiety, this kind of stress, this kind of negative self-talk. There is a relief from that, or there's a relief from being reminded of all my troubles. And the focus is on the process of being and not on the outcome. So like a walk in the park, and I feel relief when I'm just walking. Sometimes I listen to music, but sometimes I just look around and I just realize how much of a break it is from the thoughts in my head, so you can do things like that. When I sit to meditate, so even today, after these many years of meditation practice, when I sit to meditate, I have lots of thoughts in my head, but I'm working on so many things and non-things right now that when I sit to meditate, I actually feel a sense of relief from being in my regular life, so it's from that state of constant activity, I get a break. So I experience the different states of being. If I wasn't doing that, then I would just be in that state of hyperactivity all the time. And it's not just physically, it's mentally and emotionally as well. So this is the role for mindfulness in the lives of everyone, but especially if you're trying to recover from trauma, or just work through this difficult time that we're all experiencing from COVID-19 isolation. or even anxiety about getting sick, worried about our loved ones. You know, in the last couple of weeks, I have come to know so many of my friends. I would say at least 5 or 7 people have had their family members become sick with COVID. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's happening now in my circle. But again, grounding myself has been very helpful in, keeping my anxiety at bay. Without this practice, I don't think I would have survived this time as well as I am right now. And if you're not, that's okay. There is no cookie cutter way of surviving this time. So, whatever is happening with you or for you, please be gentle with yourself. So while we're talking about mindfulness as a way of coping, I wanted to, just add in there that breath-based meditation can bring about intense experiences for some people. Actually, I was the technique that I'm using now. I first experienced it or first learned it way back in 2007, but I had an intense experience of pain and nightmares, and so I stopped doing it. But it was also an intense retreat that I went to without any practice, without any knowledge of what it would be like. So I would say that that's not something I would recommend for people to go in blind. It can happen. So especially for people that have experienced big trauma, I would say that starting with trauma-informed yoga or mindful movement practices or mindful activity like art, mindful walks, mindful photography may be more appropriate ways of coping. And the use of experienced facilitators, I like to stress this because, it's one of those things that are no international standards for at this time. And so I would say use your judgment. And again, like I said, what practice am I using? Where does this practice come from? And use your diversity and equity lens while choosing facilitators as well, right? Okay. This is not to throw you, this is not to make you be scared of meditation. I'm saying don't go to a 10-day retreat if you've experienced stress and trauma in recent times and it's unprocessed. If you've been in therapy, going to therapy, been processing the trauma and then want to try it out, I would say definitely try meditation, but just don't go blindly into a 10 or 11-day retreat. My husband ran away a few years ago. He came to me. He insisted he wanted to come with me, and in 3 days he ran away. It's not because he has trauma, but because he thought it was just a time to relax, and then there was all this work that we had to do to learn the technique. So that's just my two-penny bit about the caution. So I wanted to ask you, so Linda is asking a question. What about using breath for releasing the sanskaras? So again, it depends if you have a teacher that can lead you through it. If you have some experience with it, if your teacher has experience with it and you can do it safely, for sure, go for it. There are many therapists that are experienced in supporting. I have a therapist that I go to very regularly, and I looked for her. I stayed on a wait list for 6 months so that she would take me, and I advocated for myself, but she is experienced in Buddhist meditation. And so I had to research a lot to find the person that I need during, for me in my journey right now. And so, yeah, if you have a teacher that can help you with that, for sure. So we talked a little bit about self-compassion. About compassion when we talked about what mindfulness is. So, and during this time, I feel that we're all trying to do the best we can, but it's not always possible to get there. So just wanted to talk to you about self-compassion. So this comes from the work of Dr. Christine Neff. So self-compassion is bringing mindfulness to your current state, neither ignoring nor exaggerating your feelings of whatever you're feeling. So if you're feeling, say, stressed, it's not nothing. Like, you're feeling like you're sad about losing your money, your job. It's not nothing. It may be not as bad as someone else, but it is something and it is impacting you. So self-compassion allows you to be mindful of what you're going through. Bring a sense of common humanity, which is, I'm not the only one that's going through suffering. People go through suffering all the time. Suffering is a part of life, and self-kindness. So then soothing oneself by using kind and tender language like we would a loved one or a friend. So For me, this was a very alien practice when I started, but today I do it all the time. I talk to myself like I would my niece. I don't have kids, but I have a niece who's 19 and she's like my child. And so I just imagine that I'm talking to her and I do that for myself. This has been life changing for me. A lot of things have been life changing for me, but self-compassion practice has definitely been there. So it happens to me even during meditation. Oh, I'm not a good meditator. There is no such thing. It is, what is happening, and we just have to accept it and be, bring compassion to that moment. So the impact of mindfulness and self-compassion can have improvements. People can have improvements in cardiovascular health, chronic pain, stress management, emotional regulation. They can have better creativity, productivity, relationships, and managing setbacks. And the benefits can be immediate. So like in the moment, you can feel a relief from the symptoms or the anxiety or whatever that's happening, stress. It can be short term, which is, I did 10 minutes today and I still felt the benefits tomorrow. It can be medium term. If I did it for 1 week, I feel the benefits for longer. And if I do it for a long time, then I will have the benefits for a long term. So what you practice grows. So that's why it says immediate, short term, medium term, and long term. So while all of the techniques we can learn, if we don't practice them, I am the best example of it. I learned so many of these things as a child, never did them, and suffered for many years. But with consistent practice, coming back to my roots really helped me to change whatever or to cope with whatever I was experiencing. So to remember, so like a lot of people are using mindfulness as a way to improve productivity. If you practice mindfulness on a daily basis, it is a byproduct and not the aim of mindfulness. So the goal of mindfulness is to be able to cope with whatever comes up, with what is. And because it improves our resilience to stress, our techniques, our ability to cope with stress, we may see an improvement in productivity, but that's not the goal of mindfulness. And eventually, if you practice every single day, you will see that you put more emphasis on values. Like, what am I getting out of this? You will have better boundaries. You will, you may even make decisions like not wanting to be stuck in a dead-end job, or even like in my case, I had my dream job. I quit my dream job because I realized that I was ready to follow different dreams. And at that time, I thought that I was done with that, but actually I was not done with that. I was made for something much bigger. And that's why I'm here today. Otherwise, I could have still been there doing the same thing. It might have been good, or I may have burnt out. We never know. So the idea is that it makes you open and explore the depth of your talent and potential, for sure, if you do it every day. So the macro impact of mindfulness is that if all of us became more compassionate, better human beings, we would live in a more tolerant and compassionate society. We would rebuild our systems with an equity lens. We would adopt a greener lifestyle. I still love, I'm not saying you'll become vegan and yelling at people for eating meat. You will make compassion the center of your life, and you will understand people that choose to eat meat and people that don't eat meat, and you will be able to live in harmony with everybody. There is a quote from that book I told you about, Jonathan P. Slater, and he says, "The movement of our hearts from compassion for ourselves to compassion for others makes us especially aware of our responsibilities to those others. Being awake leaves no room for not today, or I don't feel like it. The demands of compassion and justice are unavoidable when our eyes, hearts, and minds are open and attentive. Mindfulness ultimately leads us to a sense of obligation, of responsibility, of being commanded to act with compassion and justice." So I just wanted to leave it there. It's from Jonathan P. Slater's Mindful Living book, Mindful Jewish Living book. It's an excellent book. Just get it. So let's get to mindfulness on campus. I understand that some of you, maybe a lot of you, are working on campus. So the idea is everybody's talking about mindfulness. So I'm going to do it. I just wanted to put these questions for you to reflect on. Why do you want to introduce mindfulness on your campus? What do you hope to achieve by introducing these activities? And how will you measure the success, and who will be your target audience? So basically, I also find that I looked at many different colleges and universities, and I looked at the mission statement, and I realized a lot of it talks about, assumes what success means, but none of it actually said what kind of human beings we want to set out in the world. So if we made values of mindfulness the center of what we're imparting on our campuses, we might be the torchbearers of this evolution, a revolutionary evolution of humanity. So that's why I put these questions forward. Is it just about grades? Is it just about helping people get better paying jobs? Or is it just about helping people learn to cope with their lives better and learn what is important as a human being surviving in this world, or acting in this world, walking this earth? So current mindfulness initiatives, I have friends, I'm pretty old, but I have friends who are right now at university, some in college. So what I've learned is, from a cursory use, we have yoga, tai chi, mindfulness movement groups, meditation groups, faith-based meetings, prayer options for people from different backgrounds, and mindfulness-based groups, or MBIs, mindfulness-based interventions or initiatives. So this is what is existing on campuses right now. And I wanted to say, a lot of these things are easy to do. What I find is the onus is on students to participate. There is no way of, we don't know who's going to enter those groups, who is accessing it, who is not accessing it. So the idea is to become more mindful about how we are putting forth these activities, right? So before we proceed, I want you, if you have a pen and paper, or if you want to just think about it. So this is a journaling activity from what I do. So if you're ready, I'm going to say it, okay? I want you to think of one thing that you have been grateful for in the last little while. And I want you to get super specific. So I am grateful for the sunshine that was this morning and being able to sit on my deck and have my chai. And you don't have to think long. This is supposed to be a quick and easy exercise. If you're saying I'm grateful for my spouse, then why are you exactly grateful for them right now? What happened? They made me a meal. They woke me up with a kiss. Like, I want you to get super specific about what about that situation made you feel grateful. Now I want you to think of or write down something positive that happened for someone else you know. Like some not related to you, you heard about that and you were like, oh, good for that person. So someone I know got a huge promotion at work. And someone I know works at a grocery store and they got an interview with CBC National. They did a small initiative in Toronto and now they're going to be on CBC National. So both those things, very different, but went into my journal. Now think of one thing you did for yourself in the last little while. Exactly what did you do? I gave myself time to attend this webinar. Something quick. So this is the type of thing I do. I write down 10 positive things every day. I call it mindful journaling. There's a technique to that. If you want to be part of it, I would be happy to show you my technique. But I ran it as a campaign in 2018. 50 people from different countries participated. It was on Instagram and on Facebook. Like we were just sharing. And people went on to have major breakthroughs. Some of the stories I hear have been just phenomenal. And then some of the stories are of resilience. Like I have a very close friend who's 30 years old, lives with many chronic illnesses. She cannot work. And she just said, I had so much hope during that month. Another friend of mine had lost her business when she came into the practice. She did the practice for 1 month with us and went on to do it for several months. My sister's best friend she is. My sister said that the transformation in her life started when she started being mindful every single day. So that's just how it is. What you practice grows, If you have questions, you can start putting forward in the chat box now. So other ideas are to have a mindfulness bell. So say on Thursday at 12 p.m., all of us, no matter where we are, we're going to observe 5 minutes of complete silence. And that could be a mindfulness minute, a campus-wide initiative. There could be journaling groups, mindfulness in nature, drumming groups, poetry, mindful photography. There are people I know who do these workshops and they're phenomenal. Mindfulness book clubs. So like, for example, we read a book like the book I talked about, and then we share the learnings with each other, how we are applying it to our life. Silent retreats. It's very easy to organize a silent retreat on your campus. You don't have to do meditation, but just spend time in silence and being mindful. You can be in nature, you can do that. Interfaith learning events. So these groups can become a place for actually creating tolerance. Otherwise, the onus is just on people to learn based on their research and interest. But if we had speakers from different community coming out, that would be a really great way to promote mindfulness and also learn about different people. That's what we need to become tolerant people. And I would say events that involve staff, faculty, and students. So I'm not talking about grand events. I'm talking about groups, because we want to create a relationship-centered community on our campus, which means that we're all human beings. We'll all go through life. We learn together and partake in each other's lives. Breaking the barriers between us and them will allow us to experience the oneness of humanity in a very beautiful and productive manner, in a sense, right? And it's easy to do. If you want to bounce off ideas, I'd be happy to do that. The reason for how to develop mindful communities: to invite new immigrants to your mindfulness groups, the first year students, fresh, I don't like to say men, but you know what I'm saying, LGBTQ groups, and of course to make sure that the groups are cohesive, the people feel welcome. No one group is made to feel like, oh, why are they doing this activity for me? It's for all of us together. I would say students living with disability, option to liaise with existing student bodies and faculty groups as well. And what I would say is anything you organize needs to have food, a sharing of experiences, and reflection time. So that's a way to create mindful community. And I've done it successfully for nonprofits. I've done it successfully for clients and for staff. So I know that it is possible to do. And things to keep in mind: diversity of facilitators, acknowledging cultural roots. I know I said it before. Offering a wide range of activities. So not just yoga, tai chi, but also, other types of activities, because depending on who we want to make sure everyone is getting something, or at least a bulk of the population is getting something that they can access. And promote staff, faculty, or student leader training. So many times these facilitators are it can be expensive to run these things or to have someone come and do it. That's great to do, but also a way to create ownership for these initiatives is to promote them from the inside out, the same way we would do in an organization, right? And leverage online groups and social media campaigns during a time like this when everything is online. Create a hashtag that goes viral, and there you have your mindfulness campaign. I am doing one right now. It's called 30 Days of Metta. If we have time, I would love to do that activity with you. So here we go. Tips for daily practice. What you practice grows. Start with a beginner's mind. Start small. Celebrate every tiny step. I like to document it. I meditated today. It was hard for me, but I still did it. And over a period of time, it grows. The more I put attention to those things, it grows. Celebration grows. Forgiveness for forgetting to do it, or not being able to do it, or missing a day. Forgive and begin again. find out what works for you. Explore different things, but what works for you? When does it, like, is there a time of day? Is there a place? Is there what works for you to make sure who needs to be involved? Like, do you need to make sure that your family knows you're doing it? Like, how is it going to work best for you? Prioritize yourself. Be a yes, say no, which means have good boundaries and participate in group learning. Always sharing and learning from others definitely helps this process. So I'm going to throw it out for questions here that I have. So apps to support, there's tons of apps. These are apps that I know. You may probably know a lot more. So Insight Timer is one I use every day. There's Headspace, Calm, Serenity. Those are meditation apps for guided meditation or even just use the timer. And then there's journaling apps like Presently or 365 Gratitude. So those are the ones that I have heard about. There's lots of resources on this webinar, so you can, when you can go back to it and list, just to refer to it, you can look at them. And if you have any questions, we can go through them now, and I can answer your questions. There was an exercise I wanted to do, but I ran out of time. I'm sorry about that. If there are no questions, we will do the exercise, but if there are questions, I would rather answer those. And my contact details will be on the slides as well. So there's people to follow, organizations across North America, how to connect with me. All my information is here. My references are here. Yeah.
Oops. I think we spoke over.
We have about a few minutes. If you have any questions or
wonderful presentation. I learned a lot. So it looks like we don't have it. I think everyone's just wanting to do the activity with you.
Doesn't look like people have questions. Okay, yeah. So again, it's Metta Meditation. I want to go back to that slide. So Metta is the Pali word for loving kindness, and loving kindness for oneself, others. So everyone gets equal treatment in this technique, and it shows improvement in physical, mental, and emotional health as well. Andrea, I see you typing a question. You can type it if it's a question. Oh, thank you, Andrea, saying it was great. Okay, so let's just sit in a comfortable position. Relax your spine. Think of a happy moment. You can keep your eyes open or closed, partly open, whatever feels comfortable for you. Think of a happy moment. Maybe it was this morning, maybe last year, maybe in your childhood. A moment of absolute joy. Step into that moment. Notice how you're feeling. And from that place of complete joy, we will start by extending loving kindness for ourselves. You can say them out loud or in your mind, or can say Amen or Amin, whatever feels comfortable for you. I can't hear you, so it's okay. From my happy place, I wish myself happiness. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be free of pain and suffering. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. Extending our circle of compassion to include people we love, our friends, acquaintances, family members. From our full cup, we say, we pour out our loving kindness. just like me. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free of pain and suffering. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. Extending our compassion for every person in this world today, irrespective of their caste, class, gender, sexuality, economic status, political, religious affiliation, in prisons, whether we think of them as depraved or not. Every single person, just like me, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be free of pain and suffering, may you be peaceful, may you live with ease. May all beings be happy. So that was our introduction to mindfulness and meditation. For the month of April, I am doing this Metta meditation, a longer, more detailed version of it on my Instagram if you want to join me at 11 o'clock. It's free for all. And it's a great meditation to build empathy, better communication, and just understand our place in the universe, and just, you know, makes me feel less helpless during these crazy times. So thank you very much, Perlin. Thank you, Maria, for inviting me. I hope that this was useful to you. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me or reach out to me after. Thank you so much, everyone. I really enjoyed being here. It will be available to
Thank you so
you
much, Ekta.
to refer
Yes,
to
as
later
you
or pass it
mentioned,
on to
for
whoever
everyone
you
who's on
think
the
might benefit
webinar,
from it.
email is going to be going out tomorrow with a recording of the webinar as well as the slides. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for sharing your teachings and your learnings with us. Really, really great presentation and very much needed during this chaotic times. And thank you to everyone who joined on our webinar.